Heyo, this is M. Aurelius Higgs with,
Mark van den Einde.
I always appreciate hearing your last name because when I see it, that dyslexia kicks in and I'm like, I can't make it through all those N's and D's.
And the I and the J together is the one that
Yeah.
tricks people up most.
How many syllables?
EIJ, yeah. Only in Holland
Then,
and Belgium you'll find that.
Einde. Four syllables. Van den Einde.
Van den Einde, yeah, four.
Yeah, the EIJ. That's where it
Yeah.
throws.
And then the Dutch pronunciation is van den Einde.
Van den Einde. What does von mean? Because von, it means of or the?
Van is from.
From.
So from the end.
That is right. In
Yeah.
Estera, you're from the end of the world.
From the end of the world, or the end of the village, or the end of the comfort zone.
That's Mark from down the road.
Somewhere on the periphery.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We just broke down your name. Marcus is god of war from Mars, or Marcos was also the guardian, the Roman liege. So that's who I am and that's who you are. And welcome to everybody who has joined us. Now you know who we are. Let's get to know you.
Yeah.
Mark, why are we here?
Why are we here? Like my friend used to say, the big why or the immediate why? Because the why are we here, the big why, we may not have enough time in this half an hour to explore that. But the immediate why is to discuss chapter 14 of our beloved Coming Home to Who You Are book project.
Yes, and hopefully this smaller why will help with the bigger why. We have all eternity to study that bigger why.
They are very, very interconnected, definitely. Yeah.
So our book, Coming Home to Who You Are, it's a collaborative book that we've been working on for a while. You can get an advanced copy reader. It's coming out in September. But if you want to see it now, it's already been highly edited since then. But if you want to join us for the journey, go to the QR code. You can scan it on your phone or go to beingatfullpotential.com/coming home. You can see previous videos. We're probably going to review those, put them together as a lesson plan, actually. Or just a link inside of the book. These are conversations with the authors about how they formed this book. Yeah, and the smaller why, as Mark said, is to talk about chapter 14.
Three friends at a crossroads. So I can just briefly recap, if you like, the chapter 13. And so last week we spoke about Professor Amara and being at a pivotal point where he has to check in with his inner value systems to see if he wants to still continue teaching at the university, because he's asked to tone it down, if you like, and kind of get back to the basic curriculum and not challenge too much the status quo. And I think, that goes a little bit counter to his bigger why, which is to be an agent of change within the education system, to really think about what is education about in this new world, and in this world of exponential technologies, if you like. What does it mean to learn? What does it mean to grow? What does it mean to educate oneself? And that's what he ends up choosing, is to stay committed to his purpose, to his mission. And he decides that it's time to step out and to explore other opportunities. And he does so with a very open mind and in a very gracious way, in a way that leaves the possibility for perhaps coming back or the path to cross again. But he does have to tell and share this with his friends, with his student friends, the ones who have been leading the salon, Kenna, Rosie and Alex. And so that's what this chapter is about. It's the conversation he has with them, gives them the update on the decision that he has made and the reaction it has with the friends.
They're in a cafeteria. Yeah. And he talks to them because he's been in a mentor role. They've come in for office hours. They've started their IDG salons. He breaks it to them. He has that tough conversation with them.
Is it a tough conversation? I mean, I think the students feel it's a difficult conversation, but is it for Amar?
Well, no, not well. I have to get back into his head when we come to revise this. I don't think it's a tough conversation for Amar because from lived experience, he's been here before. What he's doing now is he's sharing with them the consequences, what follows with his decision. Yeah. And he made his decision from a place of integrity. So this is just what follows.
Yeah.
The kids, the students, the learners, they're not kids, the young adults, they something that young people don't understand that older people understand is breakup. The creative process is also subtractive. And for us to create, i.e. grow, or not even grow, for us to express what we want, we do have to cut ourselves off, break ourselves off, and that's part of the process. But kids don't understand that so much, or people with limited lived experience don't understand that.
Yeah, and there is this belief that we can only do this with the support of our mentor. And I think that is a belief that Kenna, especially Kenna, but Rosie and Alex also have, is that, this initiative cannot continue if we don't have the support from Amar. And Amar is actually in the place where you don't need me anymore. You've proven that you can do this. And this initiative, if this is really going to thrive, it has to be student led. And you are at a point where I believe in you, I trust you, and I know that you're capable of doing this. So it's kind of a situation where the mentor, if you like, sees more in the student than the student sees in themselves. And there is this sense of a little bit dependent, right? So the students feel dependent on Amar, and Amar is saying, no, you are independent or interdependent. We are interdependent. So it's, and I think it's what every parent goes through, when the child reaches a certain point and there's a renewing of the relationship, it goes from parent-child to actually adult, and I think that's a really important theme in this book, the coming of age, right? It's a coming of age, coming into who we are, coming into ourselves as independent leaders, right? Autonomous leaders.
I see this, man. It's called breaking up. However, I'm sitting here thinking in my head, how can I reframe this to remove the word breaking? I mean, words are words. Words don't have meanings. People have meanings for words. But I want to rephrase it as in to say, because this is actually empowering. To empower does not mean to give somebody power. To empower means to give them the space to express the power that's already within them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah.
What is the intention behind stepping back? I'm not stepping back because for whatever reason, I'm stepping back because I want you to understand what I see.
Yeah.
My intention is for you to realize the power that's within you.
Yeah.
But it's actually quite a bit of the opposite of control. Control is I actually want to keep you dependent on me. So I'm going to disempower you either by the stories I'm telling you or by not allowing you access to certain things. Because I don't think that you can actually, or I don't want you to actually become independent. And that's all psychology. That's all other stuff. But breaking up is a creative process. And I love they do it at a peer level and they actually do it at the mentor level. This is something I was thinking about while you're talking too. We talked about this yesterday. His father loves him and has good intentions for him and wants the best for him. Yet by the turns of circumstance, we're writing it into the book where there's a breakup between him and his father. For maybe father egoic reasons, maybe for Kenna deciding being an active agent in his life, but for whatever reasons, that rift forms naturally for healthy growth. This is fortunately not spoiler of the book, but Kenna has a very good relationship with his father from the beginning and eventually in the end. But we see what this Kenna coming into his own coming of age, it creates a rift there. And such is life.
Yeah. No, it's a really, I think, important new insight that we had yesterday, Marcus, and I feel like it's an important part of the next version, right, that we're working towards for September, because it does add a deeper dimension to the relationship that Kenna has with his father, and that sometimes, we need to do things that go against what our good intent, well-intended parents, father, mother have for us, right, and really stand on our own. Even if it breaks the relationship, temporarily, or maybe even for longer periods of time. But it's not coming from a place of. It's coming from a place of love, right? It's not coming from a place of disrespect or wanting to push somebody away. It comes from a place of loving ourselves and doing what's right for us. And I think that's
inversely. It's also a lesson for the parent or the teacher as well.
Yeah.
When the kid leaves or when the kid decides, it's not from a place of disrespect. It's from a place of I got to do me. And it's always long-term thinking. We talked about this speculative investment and long-term investment with family. If there's healthy bonds there, connection, it's long-term. And we're going to leave, but we're going to come back. Yeah, let's jump into it.
Yeah. Curious to explore how the three friends deal with this setback, or setup, depending on how we look at it. Yeah.
This setup, I like that. Yeah. Sometimes growth means letting go. I think the painful part for a lot of people is who initiates that letting go, and what is communicated in that letting go.
Yeah.
Let's jump into a question. 15 minutes left. Well, we reached the halfway mark. If I can, Mark.
Yes.
invite the watchers, the readers, the audience to continue the conversation with our three friends, Kenna, Rosie, and Alex, as they figure out who they are, as they learn to come home to their identities, exploring the IDGs, inner development goals, while being of service to something greater than themselves in this world. Get the book, get the advanced copy reader. Anything else you'd like to say here, Mark?
No, it's just it's free for download. So on this website you can request the electronic version, and it's the current version. There'll be an updated one in September, but this is the one that we're discussing in these podcasts. So feel free to check it out. And all these past recordings are also there, so you can also look at all the previous chapters that we've discussed in this way.
Boom. All right, let's move on. Let's get it. All right. Have you faced a crossroad with a friend or colleague where your paths needed to diverge, even though you shared common values? How did you navigate that transition?
Yeah.
Tell us the messy, tell us the good ones, the healthy ones. Tell us it all. What would you like?
Well, there's one that is very close to my heart. This work at Being at Full Potential started in 2013 with a good friend, and somebody that we basically worked and partnered together for 10 years. And around 2020, 21, our paths diverged, right? And it was messy, and it was a point where he decided that it was time for him to move on to other things. And at the time it was painful. I think it was painful for both of us, but I can only speak for myself. It left me in a quite a confused state, and I didn't really feel empowered yet, but there was just a lot of questions around, do I continue with this work? If I do, in what form? What does it look like? If I don't, what else do I do? And so there was a lot of uncertainty, and of course there was also this whole pandemic thing going on at the same time, and it took a lot of time actually for me to work through it and to come to my own grounding again, to rediscover myself and to grow the roots again, and to envision where I want to take this work and who I want to work with going forward. And eventually, a year, 2 years later, I can say that it was the best thing that happened to me, right? Is that needed to break, because it's what allowed me now to step more fully into my purpose, into my mission, and to follow my path, that somehow was being restricted a little bit in the previous setup. So it was very painful, but it was very necessary. And I look back now, of course, with a lot of gratitude on everything, right? Everything.
Man, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. First, I'm going to ask you, and you've already shared a little bit, maybe what are one or two jewels of wisdom that you've gained or insight based on that experience? And I'll give you some space to think about it, if I may share what I heard while you're saying. Two things come to mind. It's oftentimes the pain comes from the misunderstanding of identity. When your identity is with that person for 7 years, this could be a marriage, this could be a friendship, and it's, who am I now without this person? Like, what is my identity? It was collective identity, but now it's fractured.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, we can't change our past. We can change back how we look at it, our perspective of it. And that's where you mentioned gratitude. I hope I'm not stepping on one of your jewels. But when you said, I was broken, but something came forth, something emerged. That's my words. But it was just, it was a necessary that I'm thankful for.
Yeah, no, I think those are two wonderful insights. I think the identity one, very much, I can relate to that. My identity was wrapped up, it was entangled, and I was giving, to some extent, I can realize I was giving some of my power away, some of my unique power away. And so when that kind of collective identity is broken, you're not immediately sort of seeing the whole picture of the depth of your own identity, right? It's not, there's still a holding on to what was. And so, I think the disentanglement takes time. It really does take time. And I think self-care, right? You can't be hard on yourself in those situations. You need to be allowing, for that to settle. You asked about what is one of the big insights. Well, for me, I feel that there's often a relationship between the amount of discomfort and pain and tension that one feels and the opportunity of the breakthrough that lies beneath it.
Speak to that.
Right. So when something really significant breaks down, it's almost like there's also something very significant that wants to break through. when there's something minor that breaks down, it's like, okay, there's something minor that probably wants to come through. So that there is a correlation between the intensity of a breakdown and the intensity of something new. And that's what I'm experiencing now. That's what I'm feeling now, right? That there is, there's a lot of gifts, that are flowing through.
Yeah. I don't know why I picture a child.
We often say that when I work with people on the human potential assessment, and they have a challenge with the score, like if there is if they have this sense of the score is not accurate, or it should be higher, it should be different. We always say, like, the greater the tension somebody has with their report, the greater the insight that is wanting to come through. Right.
I like that, because when we talked about misunderstanding and the pain that comes with it, it is when your expectations don't match your experience, and it's like, hey, this is what was measured, this is what you thought it was. Explore that. Explore that. Wow. Let's come back to the characters in these last 8 minutes and see what the tension is. Now, we've written this into the book, we've not discussed it in public yet, but Kenna, he wants to continue on with the salons, and he's had the support of his friends Rosie and Alex. Rosie because she loves the woo-woo stuff, but I say that jokingly, but she loves that inner development. Who am I? She's a poet, a spiritually minded person. Alex, he loves the practicality of people, but he loves business, practicality of it. Why do they break up?
Well, Alex has a very strong reaction to Amar leaving. As a reader, probably it'll be a bit unexpected at first, right? Because Alex is very, there's a certain anger that comes through, like, how can you leave us? And he responds quite emotionally, right? And there's some anger, and he's not very open-minded to see, how do we take this forward without Amar? What is the opportunity here? He's like, no, this is, we've been betrayed basically. And, I'm going to step out of this, and, you guys figure it out, kind of thing. Like he's pretty abrupt in his departure.
I think it's worth noting that it's directed systemically, and that he's angry at the Institute.
Yes.
He sees Amar making the decision, but he disregards Amar's agency.
Yes.
And he says, you're being forced by the Institute. And Amar's like, no, it was me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, but he's closed
for whatever
in terms
reason,
of willing. Yeah, so he's angry. So his mind is not open to look at it through that lens, and he's kind of coming to a conclusion pretty quickly. Yeah, as a reader, it will feel a bit jarring, and it will feel a bit kind of out of character. But I think, in the next, we'll talk about that. It connects the dots that, these are wounds, right? We're acting out of wounds, out of, maybe being sort of abandoned, if you like, in other ways, in other parts of your life, and that when that sensation comes, that it brings up all these triggers, right, from the past, and we get to know Alex a little bit more through that angle.
I was going to say, yeah, it's a bit jarring, and it is a bit build up, because how we've written Alex now, he's a person who is thinking in the moment. He doesn't long-term think. I mean, he has a business, but it's he's more responsive and reactive, rather. And another thing I notice is his people skills aren't the best, which is why he's kind of apprehensive towards the IDGs, or understanding what it means, like emotions, managing it, and so on. When you express anger, it's because you feel as if you're being controlled, or you feel limited and you don't know how to respond. You don't see your own agency.
Yeah.
And that's been taken away from him, as we see in the past. Later on. We'll see later.
No, I love how the complexity of these characters come through, as a book evolves, right? And you start to learn more about them and their past, and how they respond to things. And I think Alex is one of those characters that becomes really interesting throughout the book.
I loved doing this in high school. As I taught high school, that's what we did inside literature class, because as you get to understand character, you get to understand yourself character. Tell us about Rosie and Kenna.
I mean, Rosie is sort of caught between the two. I feel like she's this good friend, and she wants to keep the peace, the harmony, and so she's a bit in that in-between space. And I feel Kenna you start to see that he's not letting circumstances pull him down, right? So I think he's the first one that gets that idea that, you're ready now, go off, go and lead this, right? Go and make it happen. And you don't need me to be there around you anymore. Even though at first he's also kind of surprised and questioning, what are we going to do? But as Amar explains it, I think he's the first one for that realization to happen. And we get a sense that he does still have the desire and the passion and the will to move things forward in spite of the sort of the breakdown that's happening in the moment.
I will pose to you, I mean, we're still writing the book, he comes into that understanding. He's not there yet. There's a little bit more breaking down of him, because I mean, this is going to be the first blow. The first blow is Professor Amar leaves, and we've not written it in. I mean, and we can explore this, but then based on that, what is going to be the backlash from the students and from the administration towards Kenna? Something more has to test him. Then he has a breaking in the relationship with his father. Then he has a breaking in the relationship with Alex. And like all these breaking downs, then the question is, who are you, Kenna? What choice are you going to make?
Yeah, that's indeed.
And this is Three Friends at a Crossroads. I think the crossroad here is Professor Amar making his decision. The friends still have ways to go when they break up in chapter 16. It's 2 chapters away. Mm-hmm. So this is making sense of a mentor leaving them. True. I got to go back and read about Gandalf and like how did the Fellowship of the Rings deal with that?
Yeah, it's a common story, isn't it? I mean, it's a common theme. Like, also in Kung Fu Panda.
What's up?
Right, the panda.
This is also
the panda also has to come to the realization at one point that he's ready. He doesn't. I don't know exactly the names, Master Shifu or the Shifu.
There's Uwe, which is the turtle from 1, and then Sifu, which is a teacher.
Oh yeah, no, it was the turtle. The turtle dies, right? The turtle dies, and then Shifu is the one. Like, I can't do this without you, and the Yue, master, says no, now is your time to step in, and so I think that is the sort of the passing on, right?
So there's a beautiful thing in the hero's journey. You meet the mentor in the first quarter, and what the mentor does, they say, take this, it will help you along the way. And they can't go with you, but they give you something that you'll use as a tool.
Yeah.
And you don't know what it's used for until later on. Now, it can be written in that the tool is actually, it's not really the tool. The tool is just an idea that it's something within you the whole time. And I think what Amar has given the kids is the IDGs, but it's an understanding of who you are. Like, take this, it will help you along the way. And I won't be here to instill it but remember this. It will help you along the way.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
For the teachers, educators, business mentors, just those who are in a place of leadership, who have lived experience, who have wisdom, remember our young ones, our kids, the next generation, give them what they need. And then it is healthy to separate. To separate is an act of love at times, depending on the intention of it. Make sure they're supported and be beautiful where you are. Anything you want to end with, Mark? Sorry.
No, I think that's wonderfully said. And it's a bit of a moving message for me today, because this is the first day that my son, who's 21, is moving out. So this morning he left with his suitcase and we did a ride earlier this week to drop all his things off in his new place. It's not far away, but he's going to go live with his friends, his colleagues from university. There's definitely a process in me, that letting go, and what did you say? Empowering, right? That empowerment, go and make the most of this, right?
Giving them the space to express the power within.
Giving them the space. Yeah.
I'm happy for you. I'm happy to witness this part of your journey. And for everybody else where you are, be blessed. And if you want to join us on the journey of reading the book, download the QR code there, screenshot it, or put your cameras at it, and it will take you to the page where you can download an advanced reader copy to continue the conversation.
Beautiful. Such a pleasure, Marcus, as always.
It's mutual, my friend.
Thank you, everyone who's tuning in, and we'll see you next week.